But the most important communist weapon may have been this gun, a rifle designed in Russia, but also produced in communist China. It was called the automatic Kalashnikov 47, better known in the field as the AK-47. This became a standard weapon of the North Vietnamese and the main force Viet Cong. It was very accurate and could fire on automatic at the rate of 350 rounds a minute. Many experts believed it to be the equal of the new American rifle, the M16. Some GIs believed the AK was better. The early M16s developed a history of jamming during combat, and Don Webster reported one example.
Some of these men in the Army's 1st Division were caught in a communist ambush, and the resulting firefight lasted 2.5 hours. 4 Americans were killed and 27 wounded. But after the battle was over, the men told a grisly tale of rifle after rifle jamming on them during the fight. This lineup of rifles, all M16s which had malfunctioned during the battle, was silent testimony to the same fact. One of the men in the battle was PFC Stuart Dennis. Tell us what happened yesterday.
When I got out to the battle forward area, there was a firefight with the VC. There were heavy concentrated fire from our side to the VC. There was 16s jamming a great deal. The men were putting up the best they could, but the 16 would keep jamming. They'd throw it down and try and grab another one. And another man would come by and pick this one up because his had also jammed.
What was causing the jamming of the M16s, do you know?
It seems that the excessive firing through the 16 will cause it to jam after a certain period of time.
I understand that one of the men that was killed in the battle was carrying the Russian-made rifle that the Viet Cong used, the AK-47.
That's affirmative. He's carried it ever since I've known him. A great number of the men prefer the AK-47 to the M16.
American ammunition doesn't fit in the Russian rifle. How would he get ammunition?
He can buy it off the Arvins, or he can capture it off the dead VC.
The manufacturers of the M16 claim that it's the soldiers' fault that they don't keep it clean. What do the men think of that?
Well, cleanliness is a problem with the M16, but in the conditions around here, it's impossible to keep it as clean as they might think it should be clean. So I figure it's the weapon and not the men.
Most of the original complaints about the M16 had come from men in the Marine Corps. But after this battle, many of these soldiers are now adding their complaints. Don Webster, CBS News, near Lai Khe, South Vietnam.
Others gave the M16 higher marks, especially after modifications improved its reliability. It fired a small caliber bullet at high velocity and was accurate to about 400 yards, characteristics similar to those of the enemy's AK-47. The enemy's strategies included not only the conventional weapons of war, but also the use of terror. The Viet Cong in the countryside developed a selective program of kidnapping and assassination. The victims most often were village officials, school teachers, and development workers. But sometimes the killings were less selective and became massacres. Bernard Kalb reported one example.
This is the enemy's handiwork, the results of their midnight visit. Sometimes the enemy's calling card is small-scale horror. Sometimes it's big-scale horror. This time it's massive horror. The enemy was described as being part Viet Cong, part North Vietnamese. We asked Alan Lavelle of San Antonio, who helps direct the refugee program in this area, for the story of Doc Son.
I think primarily the VC were chagrined because these people have been very friendly to the government. So when they start to attack the village, the Montagnard men put their women and children down in these bunkers, you see. And then they stood outside to defend their families. And I don't know what they had in the way of weapons, but the average Montagnard you see has a spear, sometimes a blowgun, sometimes a crossbow. But the VC killed the men, shot them down in cold blood. And then I understand they went into the bunkers, set fire to the houses. Houses were built over the bunkers, and in many cases went into the bunkers with flamethrowers and sometimes threw in hand grenades. So when I arrived here on the scene yesterday morning, I saw smoking ruins. I peered down in the bunkers, and I saw women with their 3, 4, 5, and 6 children piled around them. Many of the bodies near the entrances were terribly burned, but I think most of the people were asphyxiated, and some were, of course, mangled by hand grenades. It was a really horrible sight. But all I can say is any men who would perpetuate something like this are not men, they're animals. This is not war. This is mass murder.
These are some of the survivors of Doc Son. The only thing they still own are the few bits and pieces of clothing they wear. Bernard Kalb, CBS News, in what's left of the village of Dak San.